There's a lie you've been telling yourself. You might have said it this morning, perhaps you whispered it last night before bed. It sounds something like this: I just don't have enough time. And every time those words leave your lips, you hand over your power to an invisible force that doesn't even exist the way you think it does. I want you to consider something radical right now. What if time has never been your problem? What if, all along, while you've been chasing more hours, more days, more years, the real treasure was sitting right in front of you, completely ignored? The treasure I'm talking about is focus, and it's worth more than all the time in the world. Let me tell you about Gregory Whitmore. Gregory was a senior director at a multinational technology firm, managing a team of 43 people. His calendar was a nightmare of back-to-back meetings. His inbox overflowed with thousands of unread messages, and his phone never stopped buzzing. Gregory worked 80-hour weeks. He arrived at the office before sunrise and left long after sunset. His weekends disappeared into conference calls and strategy documents. He was exhausted, depleted, running on caffeine and determination. But here's what troubled Gregory most. Despite all those hours, despite all that effort, his performance reviews remained mediocre. His projects were always slightly behind schedule. His team's productivity was average at best. Meanwhile, his colleague, a woman named Naomi Ashford who managed a similar team, was being promoted. Naomi worked 40 hours a week. She left the office at 5:30 every evening. She took her full lunch breaks. She actually used her vacation days. Gregory couldn't understand it. How could someone working half his hours achieve twice his results? It didn't make sense. It violated everything he'd been taught about success requiring sacrifice and endless hustle. So, one day, frustrated and genuinely confused, he asked Naomi directly over coffee, "How are you doing this? What's your secret?" Naomi smiled, took a slow sip of her coffee, and said something that would change Gregory's entire career. "I don't multitask. Ever. When I'm in a meeting, I'm fully in that meeting. When I'm reviewing a document, that document has my complete attention. When I'm talking to someone on my team, they have all of me. I do one thing at a time, and I do it completely. You're doing 40 things at once, and you're doing all of them poorly." Those words hit Gregory like a freight train. He went home that night and reviewed his typical workday with brutal honesty. He discovered something shocking. Out of his 80-hour work week, he was genuinely focused for maybe 12 hours total. The rest was switching between tasks, recovering from interruptions, attending meetings where his mind wandered, responding to messages that could wait, and dealing with problems created by his own lack of attention earlier. He was busy, frantically busy, but he wasn't productive. He had confused motion with progress, activity with achievement. He'd been sprinting on a treadmill, exhausting himself while going nowhere. Gregory made a decision that night. He would completely redesign how he worked. He started blocking his calendar into 2-hour segments of deep, uninterrupted focus time. He turned off all notifications. He checked email twice daily at scheduled times. He cut his meeting attendance in half, sending team members to represent him at anything non-essential. He established clear boundaries. When his door was closed, he was unreachable unless there was a genuine emergency. The first week was torture. His mind rebelled against focusing on one thing. He felt phantom vibrations from his silenced phone. He kept wanting to check messages, to peek at what he might be missing. His brain had become addicted to distraction, and withdrawal was painful. But he persisted. By week 3, something remarkable began happening. Projects that had been stalled for months suddenly moved forward. Reports he'd been dreading took half the time he'd allocated. Conversations with his team became shorter but infinitely more valuable because he was actually present. Problems got solved the first time instead of requiring multiple attempts. Within 6 months, Gregory's performance had transformed so dramatically that senior leadership asked him to present his methods to the entire division. His secret wasn't working more hours. It was working with complete focus during the hours he had. He discovered what high achievers throughout history have always known: focused energy accomplishes more in 1 hour than scattered attention accomplishes in 10. Think about the last time you sat down to do important work. Really think about it. How long did it take before you checked your phone? How many browser tabs did you have open? How many times did your mind drift to other concerns, other tasks, other worries? If you're honest, you'll realize that your attention was divided into so many fragments that nothing received your full power. We live in an age of infinite distraction. Every device, every app, every platform is engineered by brilliant teams who whose sole purpose is capturing and fragmenting your attention. They've turned your focus into a commodity they harvest and sell, and you've been complicit in this theft, believing that you can somehow think about everything simultaneously and still produce extraordinary results. You can't. Nobody can. The human brain isn't designed for perpetual task switching. Every time you shift your attention from one thing to another, there's a cognitive cost. Scientists call it switching cost, and it's far more expensive than most people realize. It takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus after an interruption. 23 minutes. And how many times per day are you interrupted, or do you interrupt yourself? This is why you feel like there's never enough time. Not because the days are too short, but because your attention is too scattered. You're trying to do everything, which means you're doing nothing particularly well. You're skimming the surface of 100 tasks instead of diving deep into the few that actually matter. Time is the one resource distributed equally to everyone. The billionaire and the beggar both get 24 hours. The genius and the average person both get the same minutes. Time is constant, unchanging, utterly democratic. But focus? Focus is where the inequality exists. Focus is where extraordinary people separate themselves from everyone else. Focus is the secret weapon hiding in plain sight. The question isn't whether you have enough time. You have exactly the same amount as everyone who's ever achieved anything remarkable. The question is whether you're willing to protect your focus as fiercely as you'd protect your most valuable possession. Because that's exactly what it is. When you spread yourself across too many pursuits, you don't just slow down your progress, you actually reverse it. This is the cruel mathematics that nobody wants to acknowledge. We've been sold the fantasy that we can have it all, do it all, be it all, simultaneously. But reality operates by different rules, and those rules are unforgiving. Naomi Ashford understood this lesson through pain. Before she became the focused professional that Gregory admired, she was drowning in her own ambitions. Fresh out of business school with honors, brimming with ideas and energy, she launched 3 separate ventures within 18 months. She opened a boutique marketing agency, started an e-commerce business selling handcrafted jewelry, and invested in a food truck franchise with 2 partners. On paper, it looked impressive. She was the entrepreneur everyone talked about at networking events. People asked for her advice. They wanted to know how she managed it all. She'd smile and say something about passion and drive, but inside, she was fracturing. Her marketing agency landed clients, but she couldn't give them the attention they deserved. Campaigns launched late. Creative work felt rushed. Clients sensed her divided attention, and slowly, they began leaving for competitors who could focus entirely on their needs. Her e-commerce store had great products, but inventory management suffered when she was dealing with agency fires. Orders shipped late. Customer service emails went unanswered for days. Her online reputation started collecting negative reviews. The food truck was bleeding money because she rarely had time to oversee operations. Her partners were making decisions without her, decisions she disagreed with but couldn't challenge because she wasn't present enough to offer alternatives. She was an owner in name only, watching her investment evaporate. Naomi was working 90-hour weeks, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on energy drinks and takeout. Her health deteriorated. She developed stress-related migraines. Her relationships suffered. She missed her best friend's wedding because of a crisis at the agency. She forgot her mother's birthday entirely. She was building businesses but destroying her life. Then came the moment that changed everything. Her marketing agency's largest remaining client, representing 40% of her revenue, gave her an ultimatum: dedicate yourself fully to our account, or we walk. They'd noticed her distraction. They'd seen the quality decline. They wanted her talent, but they wanted all of it, not the scraps left over after she'd scattered herself elsewhere. Naomi faced a choice that felt impossible. If she lost this client, her agency would collapse. But how could she abandon her other businesses? She'd invested money, time, her reputation. Closing them felt like admitting failure. She spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with the decision. Finally, exhausted and desperate, she did the math. Cold, honest math. She calculated the actual profit from each business after accounting for all costs and her time investment. The marketing agency, despite running at half capacity because of her divided attention, was generating more real profit than the other 2 businesses combined. More importantly, it was the only one with genuine potential to scale if she gave it proper focus. She made the hardest decision of her professional life. She sold the e-commerce business at a loss. She exited the food truck partnership, taking a significant financial hit. She closed everything except the marketing agency. Then she did something even more difficult. She committed to working on nothing else. No side projects. No quick opportunities. No diversification for safety. Just one business, receiving 100% of her professional attention. The first month was terrifying. She felt like she'd put all her eggs in one basket. She questioned the decision constantly. What if the agency failed? What if that one client left anyway? She'd abandoned her backup plans. She was exposed, vulnerable. But then something extraordinary began happening. With her full attention on the agency, she started seeing opportunities she'd been too distracted to notice before. She refined her service offerings, cutting unprofitable services and doubling down on what clients valued most. She built systems that had been impossible to implement when she was constantly context switching. She hired better people because she finally had time to recruit and train properly. Her creativity returned. When you're juggling too much, your mind stays in shallow, reactive mode. You're constantly putting out fires, never building anything meaningful. But with focus came depth. She developed innovative strategies for clients that generated measurable results. Word spread. New clients came looking for her specifically. Within 6 months, her agency's revenue had tripled, not because she worked more hours, she'd actually cut back to 50 hours a week, but because every hour delivered exponential value. She was working with complete presence, bringing her full intelligence and creativity to every client challenge. The quality of her work became her reputation, and her reputation became her growth engine. By the end of that first year, her focused agency was generating more profit than all 3 of her previous businesses combined had ever produced. She'd proven something counterintuitive but absolutely true. Doing less, but doing it with complete focus, produces vastly more than doing more while scattered. This principle applies universally, not just to business. Think about your own life right now. How many half-finished projects are sitting on your computer? How many books have you started but never completed? How many skills have you dabbled in but never mastered? How many relationships are you maintaining at surface level because you're spread too thin to go deep with anyone? Every time you say yes to something new without saying no to something old, you're making a decision to do everything worse. Your attention is finite. It's not expandable. You can't manufacture more of it through willpower or better time management systems. You can only direct it. And every direction you point, it means every other direction receives less. The world celebrates people who are busy, who are involved in everything, who have their hands in multiple ventures. We've created a culture that treats busyness as a badge of honor and focus as boring. We admire the person juggling 10 projects more than the person devoted to one masterpiece. This is completely backward. History's greatest achievements came from obsessive focus, not balanced diversification. The scientists who changed our understanding of reality weren't dabbling in science between other pursuits. The artists who created timeless works weren't splitting their attention across multiple mediums. The entrepreneurs who built world-changing companies weren't running side hustles. They were focused to the point of obsession, sometimes to the point of dysfunction, but always to the point of mastery. You cannot achieve mastery through divided attention. You cannot build something extraordinary by giving it whatever scraps of focus remain after you've scattered yourself everywhere else. Excellence requires concentration, and concentration requires sacrifice. You must be willing to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. Right now, today, you're investing your attention somewhere. The question is whether you're investing it or merely spending it. Spending attention means giving it to whatever demands it in the moment: notifications, interruptions, urgent but unimportant tasks. Investing attention means directing it deliberately toward what compounds, what builds, what matters. Every scattered moment is a moment that could have moved you closer to what you actually want to achieve. Every interruption you allow is choosing distraction over your dreams. Every time you convince yourself you can handle just one more commitment, you're guaranteeing that nothing receives your best effort. The cost of scattered attention isn't just slower progress. It's a life spent busy but unfulfilled, active but unaccomplished, moving but arriving nowhere important. Understanding that focus matters is worthless without knowing how to actually build it. Most people treat concentration like a mystical gift that some possess and others don't. They believe focus is about willpower, about somehow forcing your brain into submission through sheer determination. This approach fails because it misunderstands the nature of attention entirely. Focus isn't a character trait. It's a skill, and like any skill, it's built through specific practices, supported by deliberate structures, and strengthened through consistent repetition. You don't need superhuman discipline. You need a system that makes deep work inevitable and distraction difficult. Colin Brennan proved this in the most unlikely circumstances. Colin worked the night shift at a distribution warehouse, operating a forklift from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. He had a high school education, a small apartment, bills that always seemed larger than his paycheck, and a dream that felt impossibly distant. He wanted to write a novel. For years, that dream stayed locked inside him. He'd tell himself he was too tired, too busy, too uneducated to be a real writer. He'd think about it during his shifts, imagining the story he'd tell if only he had the time, the energy, the proper credentials. The dream felt beautiful and completely unattainable. Then one Tuesday morning, driving home from work as the sun rose, Colin heard something on the radio that changed his trajectory. An author was being interviewed, and she said something simple but profound: writer's right. That's the only requirement, not wanting to write, not thinking about writing, actually writing. Everything else is just noise. Something clicked for Colin in that moment. He'd been waiting for the perfect conditions that would never come. He'd been waiting to feel ready, to have more time, to be less tired. He'd been waiting for permission from the universe to pursue what mattered to him. But nobody was going to grant that permission. He had to take it. When Colin got home that morning, instead of collapsing into bed as usual, he made a decision. He would protect 90 minutes every single morning before sleep. Not for relaxation, not for errands, not for anything except writing. He set up a small desk in the corner of his bedroom, unplugged the television, and put his phone in a drawer across the room. That first morning, he sat at the desk and opened a blank document. Nothing came. His body screamed for sleep. His mind felt sluggish after 8 hours of physical labor. He managed to write one paragraph, maybe 80 words, and they were terrible. But he'd written them. He'd protected the time and used it as intended. The second morning was equally difficult. The third was worse because exhaustion was accumulating. But Colin had learned something crucial from his years in the warehouse. Consistency beats intensity every single time. In his job, the workers who tried to rush and do everything quickly always burned out or got injured. The ones who succeeded were those who maintained a steady, sustainable pace day after day. He applied that same principle to his writing. He didn't try to write for 4 hours when he felt inspired. He wrote for 90 minutes every morning, regardless of how he felt. He created a ritual that signaled to his brain that focus time had begun. He made coffee in the same mug, sat in the same chair, opened his document, and read the last paragraph he'd written before starting new words. Within 2 weeks, something remarkable happened. His brain began anticipating the writing session. By the time he sat down, ideas were already forming. The transition into deep focus became faster. What had taken 20 minutes of staring at the screen now took 5. His mind had learned that this time and place meant one thing: complete concentration on the story. Colin discovered that focus has triggers, and you can engineer them. Your environment speaks to your brain constantly, suggesting behaviors. A couch suggests relaxation. A phone suggests checking messages. A television suggests entertainment. Colin designed his writing corner to suggest only one thing: focused, creative work. Nothing else existed in that space. No distractions, no alternatives, just him and the work. He also learned to protect his focus by managing his energy, not just his time. After experimenting, he realized that trying to write after eating a heavy breakfast killed his concentration. His body diverted energy to digestion, leaving his brain foggy. So he wrote first, ate after. He noticed that certain types of music helped him enter flow state, while others distracted him. He built a specific playlist that became part of his ritual. Most importantly, Colin never missed a day. Not when he was sick, not when his shift had been particularly exhausting, not when friends invited him out, not on holidays. For 18 consecutive months, every single morning, Colin sat at that desk for 90 minutes and wrote. Some days produced brilliant work. Other days produced garbage that he'd delete later. But every day produced something, and that accumulation became undeniable. 18 months after that Tuesday morning when he'd heard the interview, Colin typed the final sentence of his novel. 320 pages. 92,000 words. A complete story, beginning to end. He'd written it in the margins of his life, in the space that most people would call impossible. He'd done it not through extraordinary talent or perfect conditions, but through the disciplined protection of his focus. The novel was published 8 months later by a mid-sized press. It didn't become a bestseller, but it sold respectably and received positive reviews. More importantly, Colin had transformed his identity. He was no longer someone who wanted to write. He was a writer. He'd proven to himself that focus, properly channeled and consistently applied, could build something substantial from nothing. The architecture of deep focus rests on 3 foundations. First, you must design your environment to eliminate friction for focused work and create friction for distraction. Make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. Colin put his phone in a drawer because every second it took to retrieve it was a second his brain could reconsider the distraction. Arrange your physical space so that focus is the path of least resistance. Second, you must establish non-negotiable boundaries around your focus time. Not flexible guidelines that you'll follow when convenient, but absolute commitments that you protect as fiercely as you'd protect your child. When Colin's friends invited him out, he didn't say, "I'm too tired," or "maybe next time." He said, "I write every morning from 7:30 to 9. It's not negotiable. I can meet you after." Clear boundaries train both your brain and the people around you to respect your focus. Third, you must build consistency through ritual, not motivation. Motivation is unreliable, appearing and disappearing based on mood and circumstance. Ritual is mechanical, triggering focus through repetition, regardless of how you feel. Colin's morning coffee, his specific chair, his routine of reading yesterday's paragraph, these weren't just habits. They were switches that turned on his concentration. Focus is built the same way strength is built, through progressive, consistent practice. You don't walk into a gym and immediately lift the heaviest weight. You start with what's manageable and gradually increase the load. Your attention works identically. If you can only focus for 15 minutes before your mind wanders, start there. Protect 15 minutes of complete focus daily. Next week, push it to 20. Build the capacity gradually, but build it deliberately. The power isn't in knowing these principles. The power is in applying them with relentless consistency until focused work becomes your default state rather than something you have to force. Everything I've shared with you leads to this single moment. Not tomorrow, not next week when things calm down, not after you finish your current obligations. This exact moment right now is when your focused life begins, if you choose it. Gregory Whitmore didn't transform his career by reading about focus. He transformed it by immediately blocking his calendar and turning off notifications that same day. Naomi Ashford didn't rebuild her business by contemplating which ventures to abandon. She made the painful cuts and committed fully to one path. Colin Brennan didn't become a published author by waiting until he had more energy or better circumstances. He sat down that very morning and wrote his first paragraph. The pattern is clear. Decisive action separates those who change from those who simply understand the need for change. Knowledge without implementation is just sophisticated procrastination. You can understand everything about focus and still live a scattered, unfulfilled life if you never actually direct your attention toward what matters. So, here's what happens next. In the next 24 hours, you're going to make 3 specific decisions that will determine whether this conversation was transformative or just interesting. First, you're going to identify the one thing that deserves your absolute focus. Not 3 things, not 5 priorities. 1. This is harder than it sounds because it requires brutal honesty. What is the single area of your life or work where concentrated effort would create disproportionate results? Maybe it's a project that's been stalled because you keep getting distracted. Maybe it's a skill that would open new opportunities if you actually mastered it instead of dabbling. Maybe it's a relationship that's suffering from your perpetual partial presence. Choose one thing and understand that choosing it means not choosing other things. This is the sacrifice that focus demands. Every yes to one direction is a no to countless others. Stop trying to have it all simultaneously. Stop convincing yourself that you're the exception who can maintain divided attention and still produce extraordinary results. You're not. Nobody is. Second, you're going to protect a specific block of time every single day for focused work on that one thing. Not when you find time. Not if you have time. A specific, non-negotiable appointment with yourself. Colin chose mornings after his shift. You might choose early morning before your household wakes. or late evening after obligations end, or during lunch when others are socializing. The specific time matters less than the absolute commitment to protect it. Start with what's sustainable. If you can genuinely protect 30 minutes daily, start there. Don't sabotage yourself by committing to 3 hours you won't maintain. Consistency matters infinitely more than duration. 30 focused minutes every single day for a year will produce more than sporadic 4-hour sessions when you feel inspired. Mark this time on your calendar right now, literally right now, before you do anything else. Block it as a recurring appointment. Turn off notifications during this period. Tell the people in your life that you're unavailable during these specific hours, unless there's a genuine emergency. Create the boundary before you need to defend it. Third, you're going to eliminate one major source of distraction permanently. Not reduce it, not manage it better. Eliminate it. This is where most people fail because they try to negotiate with distraction. They tell themselves they'll just check social media less frequently, or only respond to certain messages, or limit news consumption to specific times. These half measures fail because distraction is engineered to be irresistible. Look at your typical day and identify the single biggest thief of your attention. For most people, it's their smartphone. For others, it's the internet browser with 17 open tabs. For some, it's saying yes to every meeting request. Whatever it is, remove it from your environment during your focus time. Delete the apps. Use website blockers. Set your phone to airplane mode and put it in another room. Make distraction physically difficult to access. You'll resist this. Your brain will generate compelling reasons why you need to stay accessible, stay connected, stay informed. These are lies your addiction tells you. The world will not end if you're unreachable for an hour. The urgent message can wait. The breaking news will still be there later. What cannot wait is your one life, slipping away in fragmented moments while you attend to everyone else's priorities. Now extend your vision forward. Imagine yourself 1 year from today, having protected your focus time every single day without exception, having invested 365 sessions of deep, concentrated work into your chosen priority. What have you built? What have you completed? What has transformed? If you're working on a creative project, you've finished it. If you're building a business, you've created something sustainable. If you're learning a skill, you've achieved genuine competency. If you're repairing a relationship, you've rebuilt the foundation. 1 year of focused daily effort doesn't just improve things incrementally. It revolutionizes them completely. Now imagine 5 years of this practice. You're not the same person anymore. You've become someone who finishes what they start, someone who builds meaningful things instead of just staying busy, someone who's known for depth rather than breadth. The focused life compounds. Each year builds on the previous years, creating momentum that becomes unstoppable. Compare this future to the alternative. 5 more years of scattered attention, divided priorities, perpetual busyness that leads nowhere. 5 years of starting projects you never complete, pursuing goals you never reach, maintaining the exhausting illusion of productivity while producing nothing of lasting value. Which future do you want? The choice isn't theoretical. It's immediate and concrete. Every moment from now forward is an opportunity to direct your attention deliberately or allow it to be stolen. Every notification you respond to during focused time is choosing distraction over your dreams. Every commitment you accept without eliminating something else is choosing overwhelm over achievement. You already have everything required to live a focused life. You don't need more time because you have the same 24 hours that every person who's ever accomplished anything remarkable had. You don't need perfect conditions because nobody ever gets those. You don't need permission because you're the only authority that matters in your own life. What you need is the courage to choose, to say no to the good so you can say yes to the great, to disappoint people who want your attention for their priorities so you can honor your own, to sit with the discomfort of focus when every instinct screams at you to check your phone, switch tasks, do something easier. The focused life isn't about working harder. Gregory proved that by achieving more in fewer hours. It's not about having special advantages. Colin proved that by writing a novel while working night shifts in a warehouse. It's not about perfect circumstances. Naomi proved that by rebuilding after near bankruptcy. The focused life is about making one decision repeatedly, directing your full attention to what matters most, regardless of the distractions competing for it. It's simple, not easy but simple, and it starts right now. Your one thing is waiting. Your focus time is ready to be claimed. Your major distraction can be eliminated today. Not tomorrow, not after you prepare, now. The question isn't whether you have enough time. You have exactly enough. The question is whether you'll finally give what matters most the focus it deserves. Everything you want to build, achieve, or become is possible through concentrated efforts sustained over time. Stop waiting, stop preparing, stop finding reasons why now isn't the right moment. This is the only moment you actually have. Use it with complete focus and watch how quickly everything changes. Your future self is watching this decision. Make them proud. Begin now, with absolute commitment, and never look back at the scattered life you're leaving behind. The focused path is open before you, and every single step forward compounds into the extraordinary life you've been seeking all along.